Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Tuesday night, the 16th of November. So we have begun the second half of the 11th month of 2021. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125. Still have the best prices anywhere in the New York City tri-state area and beyond on rock salt, and they have plenty of it in case you're having a tough time finding it elsewhere. All the snow melt products, Pelleto, Mag, ice pellets and flakes, snow blowers, shovels, spreaders, anything else you need to get you through the upcoming winter. 631-756-1125 for those best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com, the website. Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. Whether you want your home decorated or maybe you're a professional and you need snowmen, penguins, countdown clock, Santa, snowmen standing on each other's shoulders, or the elves, well, you can find it at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, and their telephone number is 631-957-5106. Extended hours all this week and going into this weekend. And just give them a call for specifics. The website is liholidaylighting.com. Apologize for the 5-minute delay because this idiot put his glasses down on the desk and then put his headset on top of the glasses. And suddenly he realized that I can't find my glasses. So I'm wondering, I've only been in 2 rooms in the last hour and a half. And then, of course, finally, I sat down and said, I guess I have to do the show on the blind because I can't really read very well without them, among other things. And there they were underneath the headset. So anyway, I already made
if they were a snake, you would have pictured.
That's right. I've already made a long story even longer than it needed to be. So, yes, starting a nice warm-up over the next couple of days. I think you might see 70. Before this is all said and done. We got well up into the 60s here today with veiled sunshine. And after that was after a low of 30, by the way. God. My eyes are not my eyes aren't that bad, Mr. Contino. I can see the monitor. I can sort of read things after my eyes adjust, but it just makes my life clearer and easier if I have my glasses on. And of course, if I'm doing something on a phone, I really do need my glasses because sometimes the text is so small. Anyhow, very interesting run of models today, I thought, Joe. Especially I was looking at the teleconnections. The blocking gets pretty serious next week for at least a little while. And I think that that puts some questions. I mean, we already had questions. I think it just opens more questions, maybe more for the latter part of next week than the beginning. I feel a little more settled about the beginning part. That to me looks like a fairly strong cold front. And the shot of cold air that's going to come in behind it, I think is going to be definite. It isn't a stretch to say that it'll be the coldest shot of the autumn season so far.
Yes, no question about that, Joe. It will. And yes, I did see a couple of people on the chat board have already made allusions to this. I didn't tell Renata about this, but on the 28th of November, which, by the way, happens to be the day that we're supposed to leave to head down south toward Chile. On that day, I saw that the GFS is cooking up a kind of an ice and snow situation for us on that day, but that's only one run, and
right.
Many more runs to come.
Well, the European also has some hints. I was really more interested in the upper air setup because I thought the upper air on the European and then the corresponding surface that it had was pretty interesting for after Thanksgiving for the follow-up system from whatever happens on Monday. Meanwhile, Monday's system, by the way, turns into we were looking at that upper air yesterday. The model's making these vigorous cutoffs in Chesapeake Bay. They've backed off on that, but they have left behind what looks like another one of these very serious-looking upper troughs that will be coming through. Very sharp, very much V-shaped, and somewhat negative. in terms of the tilt. So I mean, I can't imagine that we will get a severe weather outbreak this weekend, considering the time of year. But you know what? Long Island's the fifth tornado was confirmed from what happened on Saturday. And I was thinking back, did we have five tornadoes in the stretch from 1970 to 2020? I mean, I don't know. I mean, to have five tornadoes is big enough. To have it in the month of November is truly astounding to me.
You know, there was that day in or series of days in May when we were at FiOS 1 that we had four tornadoes. Do you remember that? But that was over
Yeah.
a 2 or 3 day stretch, not all in one day. This is crazy. It really is. It's remarkable that we're even talking about this in November of all months.
Mm-hmm.
But there you go. It happened, um, and it happened literally almost overnight. I mean, as we were pointing out, a few days ago, the day before, there was no real indication that we were going to have this potent a storm threat, and it just literally overnight developed. And as I said, on Saturday morning, when I looked at the maps early Saturday morning, I did like a double take, like, what, what, where did this come from? So it just goes to show you that sometimes even a day in advance, you really can't tell, or you really can't. Because I was looking back, I think a lot of forecasts were saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have a few showers Saturday afternoon." All right, and it's gonna nothing like what we had saw. No anticipation of that more than a day in advance. Just unbelievable.
Well, this has been quite a stretch, I will say. Really is. Uh, I mean, it's hard to even put it into words because I just would never have imagined. When you think about it, Joe, it's been July, August, but particularly August, September, October, November. We get these breaks in between these radical events that are about 2 weeks or so long, or even 3 weeks long, and then we just get absolutely clobbered by what's going on in the atmosphere. It's hard to keep up, and I don't know. This has been a very intense weather period that we've gone through.
It has been incredible. What a stretch we've had, and I wonder if this is going to continue. This pattern will continue as we move into the winter season. If it does, we're going to have quite a winter ahead of us, and we may have quite a week ahead of us next week with this blocking pattern becoming more and more evident with each run of the computer model guidance.
Yep. I'm downloading some European long range here that Fled Weather has sent me. So just give me a moment. Did you happen to look to see what the folks at CPC are saying in the long range? I'd be curious.
I haven't looked at that website in several days. We'll do it right now and take a look.
All right,
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I'll set the share up so I can finish up what I'm doing here. So go ahead. You got the board.
Okay, I will share the screen here, and I will bring it up, and I'm going to do so right now, and we can take a look at this together. Starting with temperature for the period from the 22nd through the 26th, and you can see that there is a swath of below normal. I really, I wish they didn't do this. It was so much easier. Well, let me try to enlarge that a little bit. All right, so we've got.
Oh,
I do it this
leaning
way here.
leaning below. I like that. Leaning below.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 1, 2, 3, then back to 2. So what does that mean? 2, 1, and 2. 40 to 50%. So they have a 40 to 50% probability of below normal temperatures for the period from the 22nd through the 26th. Thanksgiving, of course, is the 25th. Black Friday is the 26th. So they are looking for below normal conditions across our section of the Northeast. For you, Joe, it's even more evident. They have for you. I guess you're down in this area here, 50 to 60% below normal in terms of temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, in terms of precipitation, they have above normal, not a whole heck of a lot above normal, more like 40 to 50% above normal across the New York area. You're higher, you're at 50 to 60% above normal precipitation wise, and they also have 50 to 60 across central and northern New England. So, some suggestions, some indication that we might see some interesting uh, precipitation possibilities for that time frame. And now, as we look through the 24th through the 30th, through the end of the month of November, we see that we go up a wide area of 50 to 60% probability of below normal temperatures. That's interesting. How about precipitation wise? And they drop us to near normal. So, if we do see anything, I would suppose it would happen sometime during the course of next week. If there's any mix or freezing precipitation to be dealt with the below normal temperature and above normal precipitation.
All right.
And just as a matter of take a look at what they went for on Friday of last week in terms of their 3 to 4 week experimental temperature problem. And they've been experimenting with this for
Forever.
5 years now. I've been waiting to see when they are no longer going to consider it experimental. But November 27th through December 10th, look at this, Joe. 60% probability in the Northeast, including New York, of above normal temperatures probability. And in terms of precipitation,
That was from November 27th to December 10th.
Right.
Okay.
That's what they said last Friday.
Last Friday.
Maybe this Friday next Friday, this Friday they'll change their minds. But last Friday they pretty much put above normal temperatures, and not just slightly, but 60% probability for the tri-state metropolitan New York area.
All right. So why don't we, from there, let's go to look at les connections di tele, and or as they are more well known, when I'm not trying to be funny, the teleconnections. And today, Joe, on the NAO, now this was off the 0Z run, and I was actually, my eyes kind of popped up a little bit because this takes us now through the end of November. And we are, as of today, one standard deviation positive on the NAO. But every single member, starting on, I'm going to just sort of guesstimate here, starting on Sunday and beyond, goes negative. And you've got more than a few members that take this 2 standard deviations negative on the NAO toward the last days of the month of November. Now, if this verifies, and we know that these things don't always, we can come in tomorrow and we could go back to where it says, it's more to neutral, or maybe even some members will start showing it going positive again. But if it's anything like this, that long range that you showed is probably going to be a bit different when they do it again. But that's a rather very strong that's a very strong blocking signal that the NAO teleconnections are showing here. And the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, is also right now is negative, which kind of explains everything that we have this very progressive pattern, more troughing in the west, more ridging in the east, which is what we're going to have tomorrow into Thursday. So everything's moving along. But the PNA, except for one member that goes a little psycho there, it starts to go up, then comes back down, and then goes back up again. But all the members go positive at the same time that the NAO goes negative, although up to about +1 standard deviation, not to +2 or +3. That would be, quite interesting to see if the PNAs start to push up, because more ridging in the west would mean a better chance for storminess somewhere in the east. And you have to look at the possibility that there's going to be, I'm assuming that the East Pacific Oscillation is negative through much of this period. Now, remember, folks, when it goes to Adam Lowe, very good point. When you look at these teleconnections with the NAO, it's always a fine line. You want enough blocking to bring something up, but if you have too little, then you're going to wind up with a primary low that would go to our west or be more inland than coastal. On the other hand, if your blocky pattern, if your NAO signal is too negative and you don't have support from, say, ridging in the west, then you're going to deal with something that gets suppressed further to the south, and you wind up with snows in the interior mid-Atlantic states, or maybe even down into the southern Appalachians and over by me. So it's a fine line and a fine balance, but we're kind of looking at these patterns and thinking, oh, this has some possibilities as we go through next week. We'll of course be watching how these things change over the next couple of days. But one thing we can say, though, with respect to the NAO, is the fact that we've been basically negative here, Joe, since the last week of September, and except for these two little pops that went positive for a brief period in the last 7 or 8 days, it looks to go negative again. So you wonder if this is a long, this is going to be maybe this is going to be a long term, a longer term negative NAO that lasts more than just a week, that it could carry on for a while as we get into the month of December. We'll have to see.
It's going to be interesting, but anything now, especially at this time of the year, anything I think much beyond 5 days, you just got to play it day by day thereafter. I will agree, however, that it's going to be a lot more active next week as opposed to this week. The only thing we have to look forward to for this week is the frontal passage that we're looking for on Thursday late, probably Thursday evening. In fact, checking out the 400 to 700 millibar relative humidity, Joe, there's a little narrow spike of high level RH that moves across our area around 1 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning. That may be our one shot of one surge of precipitation, and then that very quickly, like at 50 miles an hour, heads off to the east, and very rapidly the atmosphere dries out, and we may end up with a halfway decent day coming our way for the end of the week on Friday. Then we prepare for the next round of frontal passages. You pointed out that this system coming in early next week is not necessarily looking like a coastal storm, but it's looking more like a very sharp, very strong frontal passage that will usher in a much colder shot of air just in time for everybody as they're getting ready to leave for grandma's house on Wednesday of next week. And of course, the big day, Turkey Day, on Thursday. But the way the upper air looks, my goodness, that thing just rolls itself up and really pulls down, it appears, a lot of cold air from Canada, and sweeps it into our neck of the woods just in time for the big holiday next week.
Yeah, and just to clear a couple of things up for you, Tom. So the NAO being negative is not necessarily any kind of storm signal. It's a suggestion that pressures are going to be lower in the mid latitudes and higher in the northern latitudes. So could there be storms there? Yeah, there probably would be somewhere, but it doesn't mean that it's not a telltale sign that definitely there's going to be a big storm someplace. You have to look at all the other things that are going on. So supportive of the idea of at least some let's call it storminess, some kind of developing low someplace. The fact that the Pacific North America index is positive is telling you that there's going to be ridging in the western part of the United States and troughing in the eastern part of the United States. We just don't know where. That trough could set up anywhere. So it's not progressive. When you have a blocky pattern, it's not progressive. Another progressive is what we have now, where weather systems are moving from west to east. Cold air comes in, goes out, warms up for a couple of days. You get another cold front. Another shot of cold air comes in, goes out. Then you get another cold front to come on through. That's a progressive pattern. Okay.
Very progressive. Yeah.
Right. Now that changes next week, and we'll show you on the maps what that looks like. Meanwhile, tonight, there's not a whole lot of weather really going on Wind is actually the bigger deal tonight across the northern plains and back in northern Montana, where we've got high wind warnings. This is all part of the warmer air coming eastward and the next cold front and low pressure that's moving across that area. But we don't have any flash flood watches. We don't have any winter storm watches or anything like that. So it's mostly centered on wind. And you can see on the, excuse me, on the satellite loop that we do have, there's a lot of high level moisture here that's streaming up from the southwest and going through the plains and into the Great Lakes. Those high clouds aren't really all that close. So that leaves most of the Northeast and mid-Atlantic states and in the Southeast under another night of clear skies and frosty conditions, only to warm up for tomorrow. On the radar, as we take a look, there's been some precip activity on the radar in upstate New York and up through northern New England. It was there. Hang on. Why is this page not? All of a sudden, the page is not loading. It doesn't want to. Good God, Joe. Come on. You just had it there. How could it not be there? Well, that's odd.
You see, and you see, and the late
Very
great
odd.
Tex Antoine, the late great Tex Antoine had it over us. All he had to do was to draw on a piece of boat tag stuck to a bulletin board when he used to do his weather forecasts back in the day with Uncle Wetby. And he didn't have to wait for technology to allow you to pull up a variety of different maps.
Yeah. Well, let me see if I can pull the right. So I got the Northeast radar. I don't know what that was. So you look at the Northeast radar, there really isn't showing very much, if anything at all, going on in upstate New York. You see a few areas of precip up there in northern Maine and also offshore, but the radars are quiet, and obviously radar's quiet just about everywhere. The Storm Prediction Center, just to check on them, they're not putting in any chance of thunderstorms here for Thursday night. They have no thunder today or for tonight, no severe for tomorrow. And we'll take a look. So they do have an area of some general thunderstorms possible down in Louisiana, East Texas, and the lower Mississippi Valley. And then Thursday into Friday morning, they outline a very small area in coastal North and South Carolina, in southern Louisiana, southernmost Texas, and central and southern Florida, as far as general thunderstorms are concerned. So, I mean, outside of maybe a rumble of thunder Thursday night, that should be it. The upper trough with this is lagging the cold front, so it's not like we're getting a sharp upper trough that's going to be coming through at about the same time. The WPC 7-day forecast for total liquid precip. Now, this carries us through next Tuesday night. So the bulk of what you're seeing here, I'm thinking, Joe, probably no more, I think at most a quarter of an inch for Thursday night into Friday morning with that front. Maybe a shade more in some spots, a shade less in others. And WPC's got 3/4 of an inch to an inch, inch and a quarter from northern New Jersey northward, and less as you go south. And so the bulk of this is going to be for the next system for Sunday night into Monday. So why don't we take a look at our friendly neighborhood GFS and see what it's doing here. I mean, right now, all it's doing is loading its maps very slowly. So there's our high off the East Coast. It's been a very, very quiet day. Precip up in the northern lakes going into Canada. Here's the next cold front. So we'll warm up tomorrow, 50s to near 60, most places from the northern mid-Atlantic to southern New England. And I think there could be some places that'll push 70 on Thursday if we keep the sun out long enough. And then by Thursday evening, the front is still in central PA. This is at 7 p.m. Thursday, running from northeastern New York through central PA into western Virginia. Narrow band of showers comes through. Joe, you mentioned about the RH on the 700, 400 millibar map. There's your precip at 1 a.m. It's long gone by daybreak. And then it'll be breezy and colder for Friday and Saturday. And I think Sunday looks okay for much of the day. Here comes the next system, the cold front, which is what it has now. The models are not creating a vigorous cutoff in the Mid-Atlantic states. It's all staying in the northern stream. Both the GFS and the European are on the same battlefield today, and we do get some rain showers and some thunderstorms. You want me to go back to your map there?
No, just you could keep going or whatever. Whenever you're done, I can. I did bring up the 700 to 400
Humidity.
relative humidity. The areas of brown is very dry air, and
All
the
right, hang on.
aqua,
Let me switch it. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, the excuse me. This I'm showing right now is for 1 o'clock in the morning, and the areas of brown. That's the areas. Excuse me. I took a sip of V8 juice, and all of a sudden, all this happened. And it's not even the spicy V8, I might add. Um, the brown is the dry air. The aquamarine is the area of moist air. The darker the shade, of course, the more intense. And I just wanted to show you. Let's. This is now. I just want to make sure I've got it right. Yeah. Okay. So this is tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. We're going to be brushed. Don't be surprised. You go outside tomorrow morning. There may actually be a bit more in the way of cloud cover. And then, as we move past the morning hours into the midday, at 1 o'clock, that area of moisture pushes away to the east, and then we're into I guess you could say semi-dry. There's some light shadings of brown there, so it's dry, and it should be partly cloudy to clear tomorrow evening. And then we move into Thursday. And Thursday morning, probably will start out with a fair amount of sunshine. Look at that stripe, Joe, of brown, that rather deep shade of brown over us at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. That to me says it's going to be fairly sunny. And with enough of that sunshine on Thursday, we could very well see temperatures inland reach well up into the 60s, and maybe even some spots will briefly touch 70 degrees. Now, take a look. The front still off to our north and west at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and still off to our north and west as of 7 p.m. on Thursday evening. And notice as we progress how narrow that band starts to get. In fact, there you go. This is at 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning. This probably translates into clouds and also some area of shower activity. But look already in the northwestern part of New Jersey, punching in quickly from the north and west, a deep shade of brown, a swath of much drier air, which by daybreak or by 7 a.m. on Friday morning, excuse me, look at that. We're immersed, we're covered again in brown. So how quickly is that area of precipitation and cloud cover go from 1 a.m. on Friday morning to 7 a.m. on Friday morning? So that stuff really is going to get pushed out. I would say it's probably going to be moving at about 50 miles an hour. And look at the upper winds here, the wind barbs straight out of the west, and they're blowing at something like 60, 65 knots. So whatever comes on through during the overnight hours of Thursday night will be short-lived. It will be hard hitting. It will be quick. And by the time you wake up on Friday morning, it'll be all but gone. I should also point out, and Christianopedia had mentioned this last night, or was asking last night, early on Friday morning, we're going to have an almost total eclipse of the moon. 97.5% of the moon is going to be covered by the Earth's shadow at about 4 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And you say to yourself, well, what's the weather look like? Well, if it was at 1 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't give much hope. But because this is moving so fast off to the east and the dry air is punching in from the west, I think that the skies after 1 a.m. are going to begin to go into a clearing mode. And yes, maybe through breaks in the clouds, maybe through a clearing sky, I think we will be able to get a view, at least in the immediate tri-state area, of the lunar eclipse on Friday morning. And then for the weekend, we start out on Saturday with some fair weather at the beginning, some clear sky it looks like, but it gradually clouds over to a degree on Saturday, and it looks like it's going to be more cloudy than anything on Sunday. In fact, maybe quite cloudy and maybe some showery weather. And then look at that, Joe. You talk about a sharp cold front. look at this for Monday. Look at the back edge of that thing. That's
Yeah.
Monday morning at 7 a.m. That is 1 p.m. on Monday, and that is actually, it looks like it was going to clear, but it looks like we have a lot of lingering cloudiness in here right on through the rest of Monday. Oh, wow. Look at that. You could cut that with a knife. That's going to be the clearing right there from Tuesday morning at the get-go at 7 a.m. to midday on Tuesday. So that looks like the front, and that looks like what we're going to be going through. And then look at that. Look at that. Look at the wind flow, Joe. Northwest. Look at the wind barbs there again. Something like 70 or 75 knots out of the northwest as that cold air, that polar plunge. Look at where the air is coming from on late Tuesday, right on down from James Bay and Hudson Bay, right on down into our area. So no question about it. It is going to get cold here when we kick off the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, late Tuesday, Wednesday, and probably Thursday of next week.
Right. The front gets hung up after it goes by, and the models form a wave on that front offshore, which eventually becomes the strong storm that winds up going up toward eastern Canada. And that's one of the reasons. That's the reason why it doesn't clear out. We get that frontal passage Sunday night, but it doesn't clear out because it gets hung
Right,
up. It has to wait for that wave because the whole
right.
upper trough is moving east. Um, Meanwhile, just looking at that, I just want to take everybody through the upper air with all of this, and then we could take a look at some of the uh, European ensembles, thanks to flood weather. And now I just rolled this back to Sunday. So if you want to see what a progressive pattern looks like, you have lower pressures over Greenland. You have this, the troughing that was in the eastern part of the United States, some ridging in the west, and then you have a trough down at around 150 west out in the Pacific. But if you watch these systems parade along, they're all moving from west to east. The trough in the east lifts out. This is earlier this week, just yesterday, in fact. Now, of course, we've got
Right.
the ridge, and now here comes the next weather system behind it, and being progressive, it just keeps on moving. So we get this quick cold shot. Now, the difference is for Sunday, you're starting to get now higher pressures beginning to build south of Greenland and Iceland. And you see the ridge up there sort of pushing northward. And that's forcing this complex up here in eastern Canada. So here's your ridge, and then this complex in eastern Canada can't go this way, okay? So it's actually
Right.
driving southeastward. So this at this point, the NAO is going negative, and you can see how that whole upper low and trough just barrels southeastward. Sitting just south of James Bay is the upper low, and look at that trough, that 500 gets really sharp and goes negative here Tuesday morning as it's going by. So you're right. When it's all said and done with all of this on Monday, when the rains get out of here, those winds are going to howl, and we're going to see that colder air coming. If you follow the flow, which I always like to use that phrase, there's where our air is coming from. It's coming from northern Canada down through Hudson Bay and then sweeping into the eastern United States all the way down into Florida. And then notice you got energy out here in the west that's coming in. You've got the key to the whole outlook next week is now the blocking high that is going to be pushing westward toward Greenland over time. So we're looking at Tuesday afternoon here. The trough in the east goes out, but look at how strong that upper high gets at the southern tip of Greenland. So now you've got the next round of energy being forced underneath it. And at least from the standpoint of the GFS, the block gets strong and then it starts to weaken late next week very quickly. I don't know if that's correct. A lot of times when you get these upper highs that form like this and say strong, the model, GFS always likes to weaken these blocks a lot faster than reality. And that is probably the reason whatever it's doing in the long range, which I haven't really looked at to see what it did on the surface at 18Z. But take a look at the European ensembles, Joe, that go out. This is next Thursday. This is the mean upper air pattern on the European for next. This is valid Thursday. Is Thanksgiving Day. What do we have? Ridging up in the west, troughing down in the east. That's not too shabby. Not too shabby looking an ensemble. Higher pressures up near Greenland. If we jump along to Saturday, look at Saturday. I mean, this to me suggests that cold air coming in next week is probably going to hang around for a while. It's not going to get out of the way, and we're not going to get a warm up. I mean, we shouldn't get a warm up if that blocking high is there.
Well, you were saying that maybe this coming Friday, the Climate Prediction Center will have a different outlook as opposed to last Friday. But remember that what they're talking about, what you're talking about is something that would fit more in the line of the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14. We're talking about even beyond that, taking us into the middle part of December. Do you think that this is going to hang on or hold into the mid part of December?
Well, that I don't know, but I will say that the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, has been very persistent since late September. And except for, a couple of little blips where it went slightly positive, which is we're in one of those blips now, it seems to want to stay negative. So if that's the case, then I think it puts the first part of December in play, assuming the NAO is going to be part of this equation. Now, if the block forms and goes away, then it's a whole nother, we'll be having a whole different conversation. But the European on the long ranges have been very persistent and insistent on this idea. So I did also have, this is from the European, let me bring this up because I posted another long range post on my weather platform on Patreon. The link is up at the top of the chat. You have to be a member to read it, so become a member. Anyhow, this is one of the graphics here, Joe, that I drew off the 240-hour European. Let me just make it a little bit smaller so we can get it all in the frame. But I saw this, and I kind of thought, whoa, that's not a too shabby looking 500 millibar for the end of next week. You've got the block up sitting over Greenland. You have the old upper low from Monday sitting north of Nova Scotia. You've got a split flow, cold flow coming down out of Canada in that northern part of the jet stream, and a rather vigorous looking upper low in West Texas that's going to be pushing eastward. And when I looked at the surface of the European for the end of that forecast period, which if I save the map, we can look at it now. Hold on, I got to change it here. This is courtesy of Pivotal
Tim
Weather,
Veltman,
by the way.
Yeah, Tim Veltman, by the way, on the chat board says, and his humble opinion, Euro is too overdone in his opinion. It hasn't been as reliable lately, and it really got dethroned in hurricane forecasting this year. Tim, I also think that it got dethroned last year. I thought the GFS, both last year especially and this year, was better or superior to the European in terms of forecasting tropical cyclones. So I do agree with you on that.
I agree with that. That's I'm not looking at the European as the ultimate solution here. I think the GFS has also performed better, but at least on today's 12Z runs, both models were relatively similar out through day 10. And here's that big cold push that comes into the east Monday into Tuesday. The European has it more of a cold front because it actually would argue that, well, it actually does have some lingering precip into Monday afternoon, so it does match up pretty well with the GFS. And there we go for Tuesday into Tuesday night, Wednesday, and it's still pretty cold here. And one of the things the European does is that it really just basically hangs that storm in in the northeast and in eastern Canada right until Wednesday. I mean, it still has a low in southern Vermont. It's just basically the upper low just kind of rotating back westward. So it's got it cold and windy here into the middle part of next week. Thanksgiving Day would be quiet and dry, but then I looked at the surface of the European going out at on the last day, Joe, and you've got a 1035 high sitting northwest of Lake Superior, And you can see what it's doing down in Texas with that upper low, where it's got a surface low developing along the Gulf Coast and snow back in West Texas and in Southwest Texas. So, I mean, it does, I looked at this and I thought, well, you know what? If that upper air is correct, then this system, this is where we go back to how much blocking is there going to be? How negative is the NAO going to be? Because if it's too negative, guess what? This is going to go straight east. And you'll be talking about at the end, next weekend, you'll be talking about precip down in Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky. If the blocking weakens too much, then what you're going to have is you're going to have a primary that's going to want to go at least initially
to the
up
Great Lakes.
or up along the Appalachian Mountains or just west of the Appalachians. Maybe it cuts, maybe it doesn't. So depending on how strong the block is or isn't. So I just kind of thought that when I looked at this, just sort of opened my eyes a little bit and said, "Whoa, well, you know what? I could see how this could all play out as we go into the latter part of next week." Actually, from the standpoint of just some irony, we could say that the fact that we had that severe weather outbreak last Saturday, and if it winds up 2 weeks after that, that we wind up with accumulating snow. It's gonna make some people crazy.
Well, it's back in 2012. Just as a little reminder, we had Hurricane Sandy, or the post-tropical storm Sandy, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people, of course, call it Superstorm Sandy. Hit us on the 29th of October, and less than a week later, we had 3 to 6 inches of snow. So it has happened before around here.
It can be done. I'm just looking at the GFS ensembles for the end of next week. Troughing in the east is there. Lower heights right into, it's not, it's still on the coldish side going into the first couple of days of December on the ensembles. So many runs to go, Mr. Rayo. Many runs to go. For now, we know what's going to happen pretty much for the end of this week and this weekend and into Monday. At least we're fairly sure about Monday. And hopefully there won't be any, surprises or any twists and turns. But and we also know, by the way, that we're going to have below normal temperatures pretty much all of next week. So, and it's going to be cold. It's definitely going to be cold after that front is done with us on Monday, and with a howling wind Monday night, Tuesday, and maybe even into early Wednesday.
See, and Fled Weather is saying, I meant to say that it's a classic look of the beginnings of a Miller A storm. Can I tell you something, Fled Weather, and anyone else who goes through this? And I know Larry Cosgrove is big into these classifications of storms. I don't know about you, Joe. I never got into this. I never did. I never. B.
Right, a Miller beer. No, it was same here. I really don't spend a whole lot. I don't do that. I look at what's in front of me. I rather do that. I don't want to get wrapped up and say that, well, it's a Miller A, so therefore this is what has to happen. Because if you do that, you're going to wind up getting yourself into a lot of trouble as a forecaster. Or if it's Miller B, okay, then this is what's then you go look at column B and see all the boxes that are checked off for that. So I also have never really gotten into that sort of thing.
Larry Cosgrove, in fact, I think was the first person that I saw on a regular basis making commentary about storms, winter storms being in that category. Miller A, Miller B, this, that, everything. And I said, what is he talking about? But and now others have picked up on it. But I'm with you. I look at things. I'll see a storm and I'll say to myself, that looks like the storm from a replica of 1979.
Yes, that's what I do. The same thing. I do the same thing. And this looks like, and then I go back into my brain file and say, oh, this looks like, storm from, February of such and such a year. Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny, with the chairman, we could call it a Briller A. Or a Briller A, or a Briller B. Okay, so I would suggest Tom, Google Miller A storms and Miller B storms, and read what it says, because to show I mean, we kind of have an idea what they are, but we'd have to go back and sort of review all of it, because we don't use that as a tool. And some people do, and that's fine. If it works for them, it works for them. It doesn't really work. It doesn't work well for me. And Joe, you just said it doesn't really work well for you. So Paulo Santos, a Miller A, is a primary with no secondary that rides up along the coast of the spine of the Appalachians, typically. The March 1993 super bomb would be an example of a Miller A storm. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
All right.
By the way, Tim Feltman, I may be aware of this. The folks at the National Weather Service office in Albany are going to be without a radar for 2 weeks, beginning November 29th, for 2 weeks. And what they're going to do is they're going to refurbish and fix up their radar. One of the things they're going to do, Joe, is take the radar dome off. They're going to replace the stand that the radar ball happens to be sitting on. The last time they did anything with this or anything comparable to this was back in 1993, and they're doing this in hopes that after they're over and done with in a couple of weeks, by mid-December, that the radar will be back in shape to continue or to last for at least another 20 more years. But for 2 weeks, starting November 29th, they're not going to have any radar information coming out of the Albany vicinity, the Albany station. I wonder whether if we have the possibility of a big winter storm, though, 28th and 29th of November, that they might push that back a little bit, that they may not necessarily take it down or take it offline until after that potential on the 28th, 29th of November, if it indeed does materialize. But anyway, for a while, for 2 weeks during the first half of December, when they put together the radar composite of the Northeast, they will be without one of their primary stations, and that will be the folks over at ENX, the weather office radar for Albany.
And by the way, we have a fun fact from the chairman saying that 8 out of the 10 snowstorms that produced at least 3 inches in Central Park since 1869 in November happened during Thanksgiving week, which kind of makes sense, because the deeper you are in the month of November, it would increase the probability of you having and accumulating snow, relatively speaking, because the probability overall is actually quite low. So anyway, on to Briller Jeopardy, which I think you have.
Yes, I do. I do have it, and I'm getting it right now.
It's my turn to get clobbered.
Yes, it's well, for tonight, for Briller Jeopardy, we have what was the all-time high and low temperature on the summer? Did we do this? For February and March. What was the all-time high and low temperature on the summit of Mount Washington in February, March, and April within 8 degrees? So what is the highest and the lowest temperature for February, Joe?
All right, so I'll say the highest for February is 45, and the lowest is I'll take a shot with the lowest and say minus 50.
Very good. You are within the 8-degree range. The coldest February temperature on Mount Washington, the highest, I should say, is 48 degrees. You said 45. The lowest was minus 46. Brr.
Oh, okay.
I think that was also the cold. I think it was also the coldest. Well, I think last night I think we talked similar for January. So
right now for
I think
March,
it's pretty darn cold up there.
For March, and March is a little tricky, but I'll say 52 for a high and minus 38 for a low.
Right on the nose for the lowest temperature, minus 38, and within 2 degrees, pretty darn good for the highest temperature, 54 for Mount Washington in March.
Okay, so April, I will say 61 for a high in Mount Washington, and I will say minus. A little tough on this one. I'll say minus 25.
Well, you're within the 8 degree range for both. The highest in April, you said what, 58?
61.
Oh, 61. 60. You were one off on the
Oh,
highest, and the lowest was, you said minus 25. It was
right.
minus 20.
Okay. All right. Well, that's not too bad. I did pretty good so far. Is that it, or do we have another one?
No, that's it. That's the only one. That's that's a lot of the chew on for one single question
Yes.
or three single questions.
All right. Okie dokie. So we'll call it a night then. Thanks everybody for being here. If you're new to the channel and you lasted this long, good for you. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. If you like the show, hit the like button. We always like to get to those 100 likes. The Joe and Joe Weather Show was brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town on anything you need regarding snow removal. The website is omnitruevalue.com. And Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York. Their telephone number is 631-957-5106. And the website is holidaylighting.com. So let me, I always like to say goodbye with us on the screen. And since I mistakenly hit a bad, I hit a bad button before. Yeah, that
you had a close up of me.
That wasn't intentional. That's what happens when I click too quickly, and it shrinks you to one box, and then on my software, I have to open up something else to bring us back to the double shot, which I just did. Well, one last question here. So should I be on the left and you on the right, or do you like being on the right and on the left and me on the right? I don't really care one way or the other. Just thought I'd ask.
I'm very partisan. You can either put me on the left or you can put me on the right.
And there's a line that splits half down the middle because we both have exactly the same space. It is written in our contracts that we have exactly the same space. We're both very difficult.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's like Roger Rabbit, by the way. Do you remember the movie Roger Rabbit? The
yes.
big controversy about that was between Disney and Warner Brothers, because they said, well, if Mickey Mouse gets X number of minutes on the screen, then Bugs Bunny or one of the Warner Brothers characters has to be equal to him. But there was a scene in Roger Rabbit where they're falling, and the I forget who the actor was who played the detective. He's falling. He's like, "What am I going to do? What am I going to do?" And like Bugs is on one side, and Mickey is on the other side, and they decide they're going to give him a spare. I have a spare for you, and they give him a spare tire, and he falls. But the two of them remain on the screen, and when one drops out, the other one drops out. They did not allow. Warner Bros. Said, well, if Mickey's going to be on for X number of seconds, Bugs has to be on for the same amount of time. We don't have those discrepancies here.
Although I did work with anchors who counted, their co-anchors, they would count the words, and they would complain if their co-anchor. Yeah, I always wondered whether they counted the and the in the count. But yeah, you'd be shocked at what some folks do behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
Anyway, enough. See you tomorrow.
You remember? By the way, you remember in Roger Rabbit there was a scene where Daffy Duck is performing with Donald Duck.
Yeah.
And Donald is like playing the piano, and he's saying things. He's singing or whatever like that. And Daffy Duck looks at Donald Duck, looks at the camera, and says, "This is the last time I work with somebody with a speech impediment."
Oh God. All right. Say goodnight, Joe.
That's all, folks.
Nighty night.